was about this time last year, right on this very spot where we first introduced you to the Mercedes-Benz GLC here in Australia. In fact, I think I'm even wearing the same shirt. So we thought it fitting to come back here to continue the GLC story and welcome the newest member of the Mercedes SUV family, the 2017 Mercedes-Benz GLC Coupe. Now the GLC is actually the second fastback SUV offering from Mercedes-Benz, and the similarities to the larger GLE are more than a little obvious. In fact, I'd wager you'd be hard pressed to tell the difference looking at it dead on from around 20 metres away. See? While the LED taillights may seem familiar, the boot release itself is actually new. Check this out. Cool, huh? Under the badge too is the camera, which hides below a little flap to stop it from getting grubby or fingerprinty when you're opening the boot. Quite clever. In the boot is a 500 litre cargo capacity, down just 50 litres on the wagon. And unlike the GLE, there's a proper cargo blind, not that silly hard flap. You can fold the seats 40-20-40 to expand cargo space to 1400 litres, which if you're counting is now 200 less than the wagon, using these really cool remote releases. Under the floor is more storage, and of course the Mercedes safety triangle and shopping crate. You can option in a space saver spare as well. The big drawback though is this really high load lip and relatively narrow aperture. Now that's going to make loading in large or heavy objects quite tricky, let alone pets. So if that's a deal breaker, get the wagon. While we're here though, it's worth pointing out these massive 285mm wide rear tyres on standard 20-inch AMG rims. The coupe's got a wider track than the GLC wagon, and you can see that with these flared arches. Fair to note too that there's 8 centimetres in extra length. Most of it is over the rear arch, and I think that kind of rear quarter of the coupe is one of its best angles. Well, you know the drill, lower roofline by 34mm. It's going to mean less headroom, but it's actually all right. Same with knee room thanks to the sculpted front seats, and my toes have got plenty of room to wiggle as well. The bench itself is quite short. You can see I'm sitting up quite upright and my thighs are sitting off the edge of the seat. But remember, I'm 6'4", so that kind of puts me at the limit of size of anyone who's going to be in the back of the GLC. If you're smaller than me, you should be fine. Comfort-wise, there's vents and a storage cubby, but no 12-volt outlet. You get map pockets, a centre armrest with a storage cubby and cup holders, but there are no USB points. You do get ISOFIX on the outside because of course this is a Mercedes-Benz and has a 5-star ANCAP rating. Well, up here it's pure GLC. The award-winning cabin that we first saw on the W205 C-Class has been carried over to the GLC Coupe. And while the layout is still really lovely, the initial lustre has dulled somewhat. If we're going to be hypercritical, there's some elements that are perhaps a bit lighter and more hollow sounding than they should be. The command interface ergonomics are actually designed for a left-hand drive car, and this storage cubby, when you have it open, well, it just looks messy. That said, all GLC coupe models, even the 220D, come really highly specified. Are you ready? Okay, command infotainment, satellite navigation, electric seats, keyless start, adaptive cruise control, DAB digital radio, dual zone climate control, adaptive LED headlights, automatic parking, 360-degree camera which even shows a cool red car for our red car on the screen, and autonomous emergency braking. There's even more too, especially on this 250 petrol, but we'll cover that when we get on the move. Now you may have noticed the outside of the GLC Coupe looks a little bit more sporty than its wagon sibling. Those AMG wheels that we saw earlier are part of a standard AMG styling pack that includes the rims, body styling, some interior trim components, this lovely steering wheels with metallic paddle shifters, as well as adaptive suspension damping that changes the car's ride between comfort and sport depending on which one of the 5 drive modes you've got activated at the time. At launch, there are 3 models on offer, 2 diesels and this, the 250 petrol, which is the car that Mercedes think is going to make up the bulk of sales. And on top of the standard equipment we went through, which is on the 220 diesel, this gets a more advanced safety package, which includes blind spot detection, as well as steering assistant as part of the Distronic Plus technology. Now, aside from the lovely hyacinth red paint on the outside of this car, which is a $3,000 option, our car features the Vision package, which is the sunroof and heads-up display, as well as the Command package, which gives you an upgraded 8.3-inch screen over the standard 7-inch, as well as some extra technology on the Command interface. Vision, you can give or take, but Command, honestly, we'd always tick the box because it comes with the really nice Burmeister stereo. So those three engines, the base diesel, which is 125 kilowatt, 400 Newton meter, the top of the range 250D is 150 kilowatts and 500 Newton meters, and this 2-litre turbocharged petrol engine has 155 kilowatts and 350 Newton meters. And for our American viewers, 155 kilowatts is 208 horsepower. Now, we're pretty familiar with this engine because it's the one that features on the GLC wagon as well as the C-Class range. And the coupe here shaves 22 kilos off the weight of its wagon sibling, making it feel just that little bit more sporty in its response. Now, peak power doesn't come on until around 5,500 RPM, which means you've really got to rev the little 2-litre 4-cylinder out, and it can sound a little bit raspy. That said, all 350 Newton meters are available from between 1,200 to 4,000 RPM, so response is actually pretty good. Now, we've found on highway touring sections, this 250 GLC can gather and hold speed really well. Now, it's not a G-force sort of crushing Sportster, but it's fun enough. And if you do want more performance, don't forget that the 270 kilowatt V6 twin turbo GLC 43 AMG is coming in the first part of next year. Now, the adaptive damping we spoke about, even when you're in comfort mode, the ride's sporty and kind of firm, but it's never crashy. It will thud over some sharper bumps and bigger speed humps, but it's actually quite an enjoyable ride. You can option up the Airmatic air suspension, but to be honest, the car actually feels better without it because you don't get that inherent sort of floatiness and, I guess, soft connection between you and the road that Airmatic provides. Like this, being able to switch between comfort and sport, it's a pretty good mix. Now, like all of its other C-Class derivatives, the GLC Coupe has the Mercedes 9G Tronic 9-speed automatic transmission with its column-mounted shifter here. The column-mounted shifter cops a little bit of flack, particularly around the CarAdvice office, and I find I'm actually really used to it now that if I get into a car that isn't a Mercedes, I'll always put my wipers on instead of engaging gear before I move off. And you find that the ergonomic placement of that shifter is actually really good, particularly when parallel parking. You can switch between drive and reverse really quickly. However, in that kind of a movement, switching between drive and reverse or the other way around, the gearbox can be quite laggy. You find there's a bit of a delay and you might find the car roll, sort of thing that you get out of some of the dual clutch gearboxes, even though that's not what this one is. If anything, it could use some better low speed tuning because at touring speeds, when it's shifting away and even driving as we are now through the city, you don't notice it shifting gears. It's a very smooth gearbox. It's a very intelligent gearbox. It learns your driving behaviours and selects the gears when you tend to move and brake and accelerate depending on the driving modes you're in. Now, handling wise, the GLC's not ever been as pin sharp as its direct competitor, the BMW X3 and X4. But that said, it feels a little bit more, I guess, direct than some of the bigger Mercs. A lot of that is attributable to not having the air suspension. Steering, turn-in and general feel is actually quite good and quite sharp, and we drove it recently on some nice linked country B roads and it felt really at home tying some of those sweeping bends together. You do notice that higher centre of gravity. You can feel that it is an SUV based car rather than a sports car, but it doesn't stop it from being fun. And regardless, you do feel very confident through corners. We were able to travel well, under the speed limit, but well above the advised sign through some winding roads, and the car didn't feel like it was even approaching anywhere near the limit. Now, of course, vision. If that's something that you're going to be worried about, you do feel a lot more snug in here, and that small angled rear window is actually pretty difficult to see out of, but you do get used to it. If you get in and feel a little bit too tight, the coupe's not for you, go for the GLC wagon. So then, of course, style. It's something that is always subjective. I know I really like the bigger GLE coupe, and I'm kind of alone around the CarAdvice office. It has been selling very well, which says that this little GLC will also sell really well. You can get it in a choice of 11 colours. I think it looks really good. I think the AMG pack really suits this. It gives it a lot more of a sporting vibe, certainly over the GLC wagon, and I honestly think we're going to see a lot of them on the road. In general though, as far as fulfilling its role as being the sporty twin, the GLC Coupe's actually doing a pretty good job. It looks sportier. For some reason it feels sportier, which is weird because it's exactly the same car fundamentally as the GLC wagon. But it does give you that sense of individuality. It doesn't feel like you're in an urban shopping trolley that some medium-sized SUVs do, does feel like a bit of a sporty option. Mercedes really is a brand with an answer for every question. If you're looking for a sportier, swoopier version of the SUV variant of the hugely successful C-Class, well then here is your car. And as with the GLE, the styling is subjective, but sales figures show there's certainly some demand out there. So until the truly sporty AMG variants arrive, does the 2017 Mercedes-Benz GLC Coupe provide a same but different and kind of fun and sporty alternative for premium, medium-sized SUV buyers? It sure does.